This is Patrick Stat Spore, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, I'm Spaceboy.
And I'm Sirlana.
And you're listening to Spaceboy Universe
on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.
32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Sirlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations. I'm Spaceboy, and across from me is the lovely Sirlana, and this is Spaceboy Universe. It is January 5th, 2019. Man, we're in a new year. Can't believe that other year just flew by. And tonight we have Robert Sullivan IV. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Hollywood symbolism. Yeah, Sirlana's shaking her head over there. It's going to be for a good show. This is our second attempt to talk to Robert due to the big Skype failure this last year. But we'll get into that a little bit later here. As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SBU Universe. Follow Sirlana at Sirlana. She'll always loves followers, so follow her. Sorry, I just bit my tongue. At Sirlana, yeah. So follow me. That's Spaceboy when he hasn't bitten his tongue. At Spaceboy Music.
Bite your tongue.
Make sure to hashtag your tweets tonight with hashtag SB Universe and hashtag Space Cadets. In addition to Twitter, you can find us all over social media. Just search for Spaceboy Universe. Hey, Space Cadets, you'll want to check out our YouTube channel. That's right. We do more than the archive of shows there. There is video content from SB Music, video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell to be notified when content is available. I need to get that close to me. Anyway, all right. So, hey, can't catch the show live? No problemo. Take the SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartMedia, and Spotify, because, man, we like to broadcast. And on that magical note, while I'm trying to resuscitate my breath here, let me introduce you to my lovely co-host that wants to quit the job. But that's a whole other story altogether that you tune into to laugh at us, and that is Sirlana. Hello, Sirlana.
I'm sorry I'm distracted. I forgot all about this, and I should have taken care of it right before the show. But we're going to talk about this anyway, right? We've been experimenting with chat rooms, embedded chat rooms to spaceboyuniverse.com. And I've been trying to log in.
Is that you, the guest?
I think it is. And sorry, I'm so distracted. I can't remember how I'm logged in to the websites. The website where we got the chat. I'm logged into that. Now, I don't know how to get into the Spaceboy Universe chat. It'll show up on, we should probably take it out of the public listing on their site. That's why we're getting garbage in there.
Yes, we need to, because the amount of crap that I saw that was in there.
Yeah.
I don't need somebody coming to the SBU site and seeing
garbage like
garbage.
That. So yeah, we are doing the thing where you're welcome to come to Spreaker, where we're broadcasting live. If you go to our website, spaceboyuniverse.com, when you land there, there's an embedded player. You can come in through that way, through the little chat bubble. Or you can click the chat link on our menu, and that will take you to our embedded chat. And this is a different one from last time. We're experimenting. And the only way I'm going to get in is if I clear the history. There I am. There I am. And Bev has joined us in our embedded chat. So, yeah, I've logged. That's the way. You got to go log into Minute. Then you can come into, for you and I, not everybody else. But I don't think you have to register, or do you? Come in as a guest. You don't have to register.
You don't have to, but in
there, again, we can post links. We can post links to videos, links to images, links,
so howdy to Bev, howdy to K28 in the experimental chat room. And we're so glad you could make it tonight.
Let's see. What can I do to them? Direct message, add a friend. I'm going to add y'all as friends. Make a regular. Cool. That's cool. So, yeah. Again, and here's something cool. We'll talk about this later maybe. But if I do this in that chat, I type the word shop, it will take you to our merchandise on Spreadshirt.
What's that all about, Sir Lana?
And why am I saying that is we have a shop, and it has all kind of cool shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts.
Well, hey, I like to drink a lot of coffee. Is there any kind
travel mugs,
mugs,
regular mugs, tote bags, and baseball caps? And I made sure I went in there. There's a men's premium shirt that I saw has sizes over 2X, and that's what I'm interested in. So I made sure there's larger sizes. I made sure that the women have more options, more fitted shirts if you like your shirts more fitted to your body or not. And every single design that I put up has more options now, more products.
When you say more products, is there a shirt out there for like somebody like K28?
No, there is not.
Circus peanuts?
I don't know. I don't even want to get into it right now. That is not worth getting into right now. We'll talk about it maybe sometime when we don't have a guest on the show, okay? When we have more time. So, hey, Bev, with your waving bear. Isn't that cute? So, yeah. So, if you like this chat better than the Spreaker chat, maybe this is a place for you, which is just going to be spaceboyuniverse.com/chat.html, or just go to the website. There's a link on our menu. Takes you right there. We kind of like this one. We might keep this one. There's a few little things we don't get, but I think that might be a matter of me or you contacting this company and asking, why doesn't this feature work? Or is it based on levels of billing? Maybe we didn't purchase that level or something. So, yeah. So, feel free to join us in the Spreaker chat or the chat that's embedded in our website. And we will be watching both all night long. It's fun. You could post animated GIFs in that chat, and people are going crazy. So
yeah, a lot of stuff that you can't do in the Spreaker chat.
Spaceboy, you don't have your avatar on.
I thought what?
Well, you have to go to the the chat's website.
I updated that the other day.
Well, you have to go into the chat's website and log in and do it from there.
Actually, no.
Or you could do it from there. Here.
There I am. See?
Oh, that's your actual face. You don't match me.
Well, I don't have my whatchamacallit on this site.
Oh, yeah.
I have to download it.
Anyway, so feel free to join us in either chat or both. It's yay, Bev loves it.
Good.
See, it's a little more freeing, isn't it?
Yeah, you can use whatever browser you use.
K28, how are you in there twice?
He's a conundrum.
A guest and a registered user. Okay, that's whatever. That's fine. If you enjoyed replicating and cloning. Oh, I think our delivery is here.
Oh, well,
okay.
You want to continue while I take care of that?
Yeah. Not that we're sponsored or anything, but we did an Amazon Prime Now delivery. That's where Amazon can deliver anywhere between 1 and 2 hours of your order. And we did that because we were desperate and we didn't feel like getting out. And I'm really under the weather, so I just can't make it to Walmart today. So, but, well, we need this and we need this. So we just did. Paid a little more than we should, but stuff gets delivered to the house so we don't have to leave. So that's really nice. Bev's going crazy with the animated GIFs. Isn't that fun? Don't you like that? I want to post one too. Let's see what I can post in the embedded chat. But anyway, yeah, so that's cool. And if I type shop, it takes you to our shop. And if I type, I'm going to see if this works. If you type Twitter, it goes to the Spaceboy Universe Twitter. If I type Facebook, it will take you to the Spaceboy Universe Facebook. And if you type Space Cadets, it should take you to, let me see, that's not it then. Space Cadets. I can't remember how I did this. I wanted to set this up so it would take you to the fan page on Facebook, but I have to go see how I set that up, and I do that by logging into Spaceboy's, logging into his account. So I'll have to check that later. But I had it set up to where certain things get triggered. I don't know K28. That's something we're trying to look at. You should be able to post images into that chat, but for some reason you can only link them. So that's a conversation I or Space will need to have with the
Actually, I'm already ahead of you
application.
because I've been I'm aware of it, and that's what the future is.
But if you're talking about your face or your avatar, like K28, go to where you see your name displayed on the right side of the chat. Click your little circle with the image in it, and you should be able to change your profile image if you wish to. You don't have to, but that's how you do it. But we like this because there's a very low learning curve, and I don't think you have to register. You can pop back in and out of this.
And unlike Spreaker, you can at least do the GIF things, and it's much cleaner. It's embedded on our website, and so what if there's like ever a night we're not live and we just want to interact with you Space Cadets, we have the ability to do that now.
We do. We can pop up and chat. Their emojis are a little weird, though. They're very weird looking.
They're very retro.
They're very strange. So feel free to join us either place. Please join us and buy some merch.
All right.
Appreciate that too.
So where do we go from here, Solana?
Well, let's see. I just found something before we got live that I thought was interesting. After 20 years delay, works from 1923 will finally enter the public domain.
I saw that and I thought of you.
And it's now, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, copyright stuff fascinates me. And we're living in a world where don't you dare take my thing and do whatever, or don't even talk about it, don't even look at it unless you pay me, So 95-year-long copyrights have been in place for certain works since 1923. So certain films and books and songs will be the first to enter the public domain since 1998 was the last time some major things came into public domain. Charlie Chaplin's classic, The Pilgrim, Jacob's Room by Virginia Woolf, and the song, The Charleston, based on the same dance craze, they're now in the public domain.
So, dun, 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 dun.
You will not get in trouble for that now.
Thank you.
Welcoming classic works of public domain, it was an annual New Year's Day tradition. Like, for instance, Charlie Chaplin's directorial debut from 1921, The Kid, it went public domain January 1st, 1997. The German horror classic Nosferatu from 1922.
It's now public domain.
It's public. Well, no, it became public domain in 1998. So if you want to create a video, Spaceboy, and you have Nosferatu playing in your background, you can. That explains that SpongeBob episode.
I could do my own soundtrack.
Congress extended the length of the copyright from 75 to 95 years, or from 50 to 70 years after the author's death. I guess that's nice to protect their rights, but it prevents any new works from entering public domain. So that's kind of strange. Really, why was that in place in the first place? Well, you know who we can blame for that? Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse cartoons were first released in 1928, and those new rules extended Disney's control of copyright until the year 2023. How about them apples? So, but as of, 5 days ago, the 95-year limit will expire, so some books, films, and songs will be free to anyone to copy, reproduce, present, perform, display, whatever, without having to get permission or pay royalty fees to the original rights holders. Google will make full books available to read through Google Book service. Some of these videos can be uploaded to YouTube. So it's going to be a cool year for that type of thing. This fascinates me, and I just thought I'd let you know. Alrighty.
Yeah, but yeah, when I saw that, I immediately thought of you, and I was going to share it with you, but I was at work at the time. I had to work, make a paycheck.
Well, fortunately, you and I probably go to the same websites and see the same things, and so. Well, I did not see this movie, so if this might be a potential spoiler for you listening.
Are you about to get into Bird Box?
Yeah, I didn't see this movie because I'm not into horror and I don't care about it. But anyway, I'm aware that there's this horror film on Netflix called Bird Box, and I'm guessing that has to do with birds indicating when something bad's about to happen.
Think of
the old mines,
the old canary and the
mine shaft.
Mine shaft.
Yeah, well, if the bird can see it and the bird's dead, you're in trouble. Same thing here. So, there's a new stupid trend coming out of this film. Netflix warns against Bird Box Challenge as a dangerous trend, and it goes viral. It's being kicked off, of course, on YouTube. Warn fans against participating in a potentially dangerous online challenge that's inspired by Bird Box to wear a blindfold at all times, wandering around outside, and applies to a certain period of time. Some people have tried to go about their daily lives for 24 hours while blindfolded. Others have attempted a shorter challenge period. But Netflix's social media team called out the challenge on Twitter, asking people not to hurt themselves and perform the act. Well, dear Netflix, I know that you've got to say something, but you have to understand, people will find a way to be stupid, and there's nothing you can do about it. So don't beat yourself up, Netflix.
Indeed.
So they've already said, can't believe I have to say this, but please do not hurt yourselves with this Bird Box challenge. The Netflix account tweeted, "We don't know how this started. We appreciate the love, but we have just one wish for 2019, and it's you not end up in the hospital due to memes." Well, that's all well and good, but, Tide Pod Challenge, and, people are going to find a way to hurt themselves, to be stupid, and I think that's evolution's way of getting rid of the ones of us that don't need to be in the gene pool, just to be, cruel or anything, but there you go. Anyway, that's just the latest stupid thing that's going on, and there's videos of people doing this challenge on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We haven't talked about TikTok because we're too old.
Speak for yourself.
Anyway, so talking about people being stupid and irresponsible, if you want to, there's this new trend on YouTube where some of the bigger channels, the bigger names, bigger accounts on YouTube have gotten into these sponsorships where they're promoting these loot boxes or blind boxes where you go to a website and you pay a certain fee or amount to get access, and
Think of it as putting a coin in a one-armed bandit and hoping to get money out in return.
What they're saying, oh, well, I went to this website and I only paid $15 and I got thousands of dollars in shoes and like Gucci stuff, and it's all a scam, and they're being misrepresented. And it's a company called Mystery Brand, loot box style gambling. It's basically gambling online because, like you said, the one-armed bandit. And it's from YouTubers like Jake Paul and Rice Gum, which is his name is Brian Lee. They're big. They're well known. Jake is the brother of Logan, who had that big Suicide Forest scandal at the beginning of this last year. So you could tell the intelligence level there did not go up with as you add a brother onto that family. The sponsored videos promoting Mystery Brand is a $100,000 offer that other YouTube creators said they've also received and turned down. So other big guys and gals on YouTube have been approached from this Mystery Brand, and they've turned it down. So that lets players spend anywhere from $12.99 to $100 to get a chance to open a virtual box and cut it open and get an unidentified prize. So the prizes differ. The actual prizes differ from USB cords and fidget spinners to designer clothes, cars, and houses. But let me tell you, your odds of getting the expensive stuff are just like going to Vegas. Very, very minimal. So they've spent thousands of dollars on boxes, winning everything from $4 spinners to $60 Converse sneakers, AirPods, iPhones, sneakers worth $1,000, but they're very much misrepresenting your odds. Now, 3 days after Rice Gum's video went up, something changed. Within 24 hours, he and Jake Paul started facing call-out videos from a couple of other YouTubers whose names I don't recognize, Ethan Klein and Kavos, but most damaging, PewDiePie, who is the reigning champion of YouTube at 79 million subscribers. He did his own little fake news program. It's like, ooh, Rice Gum did an oopsie, saying that promoting this website is a bad idea in general, considering both Rice Gum and Jake have young fans. And, of course, Rice Gum had to release a video saying he's sorry and asked for forgiveness. I guess it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Because I do feel bad. I kind of defend myself, but I don't know what. I do know that I'm somewhat in the wrong. So they have to be getting some kind of massive kickback, right? That they're not disclosing, I'm guessing. YouTube believes that creators should be transparent with their audiences if their content includes paid promotion of any kind. Well, that's big of you, YouTube. I'm kind of surly about YouTube because of the whole YouTube Rewind 2018 thing, and
I know that we've experienced recently what a lot of other YouTubers have been experiencing. Our subscriber count went down tremendously, and it wasn't the result of the subscribers. It was the result of YouTube. And so I've gotten to see firsthand what YouTube is doing to creators such as ourselves, and kind of pissed me off beyond belief. But I was expecting.
They go in there and they say they're purging fake accounts, dead accounts, bots. I'm like, really? There's that many? Just that. I've also learned, as a side fact, from I've got some big names I watch on YouTube sporadically, but a lot of them were gaming accounts, and they've had to change their dynamic to stay afloat. So they've gotten diverse. They say January is a dead time for monetization and ad revenue. It's when everything gets purged. Everything kind of goes, just goes way down. So no one knocks themselves out to make cutting edge or new or videos,
new content, new videos.
Yeah, they're just like they kind of wait for things to start ramping back up.
Kind of like Spaceboy music video.
Yeah, kind of like. Well, we've had some challenges personally that's been holding that up. That's just just illnesses and just basically depression and stuff like that. So we want to get into that. But anyway, YouTube is owned by Google, which does not shock me. let's Google as a search engine has secret algorithms, right? On, like, if you want your website to get on top, stay on top, or get the most views or clicks per minute, it's a constantly changing algorithm. The way they do business changes like every 3 months, I think. You get it figured out and they change it, and then you have to scramble to figure it out. That's why if you get a job as an SEO expert, a search engine optimization expert, you'll have a job forever if you stay on top of your game, because they're constantly changing. So I think Google takes that mindset right over into YouTube. And they're constantly changing the back end game there, and everybody has to struggle to learn the new rules and the new ways to stay afloat and relevant. And it could be the way to stay relevant is to stay in some kind of scandal, because at least, as Oscar Wilde says, basically to paraphrase him, at least they're talking about me. There's no such thing as bad advertisement. I can't remember his exact quote. It's basically like, I would rather be, people talking smack about me than not talking about me at all, because he had a big ego. So anyway, that's what that's all about. I just think basically it's gambling, and young people are seeing it, and they're not being, transparent about it. Anyway, but the other thing I found interesting is apparently some of the big airports in England have had some trouble with drones, and I'm thinking these might be just random citizens who have drones that have gotten too close to the airport or into the airport. So now Heathrow and Gatwick airports have purchased their own anti-drone systems. It's gotten that bad, and the British Army reportedly bought an Israeli-built drone defense system to protect themselves at Gatwick and Heathrow. But in the meantime, both of those airports say they've spent millions to acquire and install their own military-grade anti-drone apparatus. Scotland's Edinburgh Airport also is taking precautions with foot patrols and expanding no-fly zones around their facility. So this is getting serious over there. I didn't realize it was so to the point where they're having to bring in military-grade stuff. But what they've brought in, some of these apparatuses, says the system, reportedly manufactured by Israeli defense contractor Rafael, which allows operators to jam a drone's radio signals but allow it to land safely. So, sure, it's one thing. I was just thinking, yeah, you could jam a drone, but you don't want it falling randomly out of the sky, in any place. So that's kind of a tricky thing to get one of these things down, and unless you have trained a hawk to take it out. But BBC says the British military has removed its equipment from Gatwick. But that whole incident that went down has sparked a large conversation about the threat of consumer drones that they pose to that country's infrastructure. In fact, the mere sightings of a drone was enough to shut down a major transportation hub for days. So it's just a heck of a thing,
Indeed. I guess on that magical note, Solana, let's take our break so we can reach out to Robert and get him on the air and start this wonderful conversation, shall we?
All righty.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lotta.
This is author Jordan Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mama Nim I said hi.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universal. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Robin.
Robert W. Sullivan IV is a Freemason, philosopher, historian, antiquarian, jurist, lay theologian, writer, mystic, radio TV personality, best-selling author, CEO, and lawyer. He has been on many radio television shows such as Coast to Coast AM, Caravan to Midnight, Dreamland, Fade to Black, and many, many more. He was also featured as Author of the Month in January 2014 by Graham Hancock. Robert is the author of The Royal Ark of Enoch, The Impact of the Masonic Ritual, Philosophy and Symbolism, Cinema Symbolism, A Guide to Esoteric Imagery in Popular Movies, and Cinema Symbolism 2, More Esoteric Imagery in Popular Movies. Robert is a CEO of Deadwood Publishing, and you can visit him on his website, robertsullivaniv.com. That's Robert Sullivan IV in Roman numerals, robertsullivaniv.com. Please welcome, at last, Robert Sullivan IV.
Hi, Solana. Hi, Spaceboy. Thank you for having me on. Welcome me into the Spaceboy universe. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, it's good that everything's working. It was about, what was it, the middle of December that we tried this, and we had the
Skype debacle.
Audio, the audio problems. But no, it's great to be here tonight. And again, thank you for the invitation to be on. It's much appreciated.
And once again, we appreciate you coming back to visit us, and it means a lot to us. And before we start, I just want to say thanks to Solaris Blue Raven for making this connection with us to you. So we owe a lot to her, and we always like to give her kudos when she helps out.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I know Solaris. I'm actually going on one of her shows next Saturday night.
Excellent.
So, that's always a fun time.
Cool.
Well, she means a lot to us as, people who broadcast and create content. So we're glad that she could hook us up with you. So, and we're both excited to talk to you because I did get through most of your book, the first Cinema Symbolism, and my background is, I was an English major, so I'm really into semantics and the esoteric subject matter and hidden meanings and things like that. So I've always been fascinated with layers that have deeper meanings, that you look at something and you don't know what else is there, what something's telling you. And Spaceboy's always getting on my case for not being as observant as I should be in some situations. So I liked that your book taught me some things I didn't know, like the basics of where we get Easter eggs and that whole, from, the religion and the new moon and it being the new egg. I really thought that was amazing. Being a kid, not knowing that the Smurfs were communists.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. A lot of where our customs come from. It's the holidays, Christmas, which we just had. A lot of this revolves around the movements, the ecliptic with the sun and the moon and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, it's fascinating to discover that stuff. And like I said, I talk about it in the first book I wrote, Royal Arch of Enoch. I get into a lot of the solar attributes, things like that. And then, of course, this carries forward with the movies and archetypal imagery and things like that. But yeah, it's always fascinating to learn something new. And it's one of the reasons why I like to write the book so much is when you watch these movies, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them, you're absolutely correct. They're multi-layered. They have different levels of interpretation. Some movies more than others, some movies not at all, of course. But it's always a fascinating study to discover these, multiple layers, these hidden meanings that are, hidden beneath the celluloid, as I like to say, in these movies. And I've written 2 books on it, and I'm actually working on a 3rd right now. So it's, there's a lot of movies out there to talk about, and you think you've seen it all, and then you watch a new movie, or you watch a movie that you've seen, you think, oh, I covered it, and you find something new in it. That happens from time to time also. So, it's an interesting study, and like you said, anytime you learn something new or discover something new, that's always fascinating.
Would you say this goes all the way back to at least Metropolis, that movie?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned Metropolis because that's Fritz Lang's Metropolis is one that I'm actually analyzing in the new book I'm writing.
Oh, excellent.
But yeah, absolutely. Oh, you can take this. You go back to the very, very beginnings of movie making. You can find esoteric imagery. Even with Fritz Lang's Metropolis, you have the Nosferatu movie with Max Schreck there. And Dracula itself has a lot of hidden meanings with it, with Stoker. And then even pre-Hollywood, pre-movie making, you get into things like Richard Wagner's Ring Cycle. That has hidden. Mozart's The Magic Flute has different levels of interpretation. The works of William Shakespeare, witches, the occult, ghosts. So, it goes way back in time. But no, when you get into hot movies, Metropolis, definitely multi-layered, very deep movie there.
And that movie, if I recall, is more about class struggle or, oppression.
Oh, yeah.
Oppression.
Yeah, it's multi-layered. You can look at it as, you can certainly look at it through a political lens, where you have the, upper class, clearly representing the Weimar Republic of Germany, and then you have the lower classes, who are working down beneath the earth, as sort of, the laborers, the communists. So, you can look at it in the lens of, the aristocracy versus the communists. You can look at it as a political allegory. But, then you have a very deep Gnostic element in that movie where you have, you have the demiurge-like character who is the ruler of Metropolis. Fredersen is his name. I mean, and then you have the workers who are married to the machines,
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a struggle to liberate yourself from the machine. To where the workers and the machine are one and the same. So it's the idea of liberating consciousness from the machine-like structure. So in that aspect, it's very Gnostic. It has loads of deep religious overtones to it, carrying forward this Gnostic theme. So I mean, it's a very complex movie and very multi-layered. I like it very much. I mean, when you're talking Metropolis, I mean, years later, I mean, you can see the influence
Mm-hmm.
of this movie on loads of other films.
Oh, yes, because this was 1927. It's the great-great-grandfather of sci-fi, I guess, in a way.
Oh, absolutely. It's clearly one of the earliest, I mean, sci-fi movies. I mean, you have right in there with, Hell, the android, I mean, the Kabbalistic golem, the machine that takes on the human appearance. I mean, clearly you watch a movie like Blade Runner.
That's ahead of its time. Man, it was really ahead of its time. You say that.
Yeah. Yeah, you watch Blade Runner or Dark City, you will clearly see the fingerprints of Metropolis all over it. So, I mean, it's a very influential movie, very important movie. And it's actually, like I said, one that I'm taking on in Cinema Symbolism 3, which I'm working on right now.
Okay, well, I will. When you put that out, I'll read it, and we can talk about that when it gets out, because that's going to be really good. But Metropolis is one of those things. I suppose the layperson could watch that and go, "Oh, that was an interesting story," and completely miss all the stuff that you've just mentioned. And another movie that comes to mind just like that, and I watched it when I was younger. I didn't see any of that till I became older, and after I was an English major and graduated, I started learning to think critically about works. Is 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a lot more going on there, a lot of deeper messages about humanity than just a crazy machine took over.
Right. Yeah. 2001 with Kubrick, which is based on the works by who's it? Arthur C. Clarke, I believe. Yeah. You definitely have. I mean, I like how Kubrick commingles that with The Shining, where you have in The Shining you have the descent of mankind, the descent of man into savagery and madness, and then in 2001 you have the apotheosis of mankind. So yeah, it's an interesting movie as well. I've never analyzed it. It's been so long since I've seen it, but certainly a fascinating movie to say the least. It's some of those movies out there. 2001 is one that's like that. Some movies are just so difficult to analyze. Ones that I've taken on before are like David Lynch's Lost Highway. That's what I took on in Cinema Symbolism 2, which is just such a deep movie. I mean, it's open to so many interpretations and breakdowns of it. David Cronenberg's Existence is another one that just is just next to impossible to break down. So yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with film, and like certainly with Metropolis, and like I said, there's a religious element as well going on in that film, as well, with the son sort of being the Christ figure, the Christ archetype. With that, he's the son of the freighter, he's the son of the ruler. And of course, he's in the garden, the Garden of Eden, and Maria comes in. Mary with the children around her, conjuring Madonna and child. So you have, loads of religious aspects to that movie. But I mean, you're absolutely correct when you're dealing with film and you're dealing with the occult layers of it. I mean, my goodness, yeah. I mean, they can be multi-layered. I mean, for example, one of the movies in Cinema Symbolism that I took on was The Wizard of Oz.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Which is has the political allegory in it. That's the one most people are aware of. But there is a deep, what I would call sort of mystery school Gnostic initiation into the mysteries element going on inside of The Wizard of Oz. So I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, movies can hide meanings, but in some movies, not all, of course, can hide the deeper levels, the deeper. The multi-layered is the better word to use.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, with these movies, with this hidden symbolism, is it a matter of someone trying to put out a message, or
why would they bother?
Or is it just somebody trying to embed something in their mind? Like, for example, I've listened to a few things about the Back to the Future. and movies referring to the I guess the 911 angle of
predictive programming.
Predictive programming. What's your take on this, Rob?
Right, I don't buy into any of that. I believe that. I mean, I think I agree with in the instance that some movies are predictive, are prophetic. That I do agree with, and especially when you get closer to the event. Movies that are like 15, 20 years away, I mean, that's kind of a little too far removed from me. I mean, you can see things with 9/11 regarding the Escape from New York movie. Mm-hmm. And Back to the Future is a great example. I mean, I take it on in cinema symbolism. It's the Egyptian Osirian religion. It's a great study in comparative religion. The 9/11 phenomenon is interesting because when you get close to the event in the late 90s, you do have movies that do seem to be talking about this or referencing it very subtly. The Matrix is a great example of one. The Patriot with Mel Gibson is another one that's fascinating. My take on it is, I mean, I find it hard to believe that movie makers have foreknowledge of this. I just, as a lawyer, I would need much stronger evidence of that. I mean, that just really doesn't add up. On the other hand, I would be the first to admit that the material is in there. So then that begs the question, well, how is this appearing? And what my theory on it is, and again, it's just a theory, I can't prove it, is that this relates to what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, mm-hmm. and what Plato called the theory of forms, was that there was this archetypal imagery embedded in our subconscious mind that is handed down from generation to generation, and that in some instances it appears in our art, in our craftsmanship, regardless of our intention. And what I argue in my books is that this is somehow also, if you're making a movie, this could also be prophetic, that you could be incorporating subconsciously future incidents, referencing future things. I can't prove that, but that's what seems to be going on in my opinion. When it comes to the hidden imagery, I mean, don't get me wrong, I definitely believe that 98% of it is completely intentional. But when you get into things like that, it's prophetic. I call it. I don't like to use the word predictive programming. I use the word, film is prophecy. Mm-hmm. Where there's a film and then something in the film comes to pass. How is that happening? Why is the film being prophetic? And I think it has to do with the notion of the collective unconscious, almost as working almost in reverse. If it's inherited, can it also be a predictive, foretelling mechanism? So that's sort of my take on it. But it is interesting to see the 9/11 references, especially. I mean, I was doing some research over the summer real quick, and there's some absolutely fascinating predictive components with Donald Trump in the lead up to him winning the presidency that are just uncanny. I mean, defy explanation, and yet there they are. So, I mean, it's definitely happening. It's just, a question of how are they getting in there? And it's like the same thing. I don't think that was intentional, but there it is nevertheless.
Well, I did read that section in your book on Back to the Future, because, again, beloved films, and, you watch them over and over, and you don't even think to try to pick it apart. But when I read your chapters on the three films, I was like, oh, especially when it's kind of obvious now, if you do know that some of these Egyptian legends, the Isis Osiris dynamic with, the mom falling in love with Marty, not knowing right. He's her son. Doc Brown is a Time Lord that actually causes more problems, and you could actually argue that Doc is the villain of these movies. If he had never done any of this, you wouldn't have all these loose ends to tie up, and people wouldn't have died, and Biff wouldn't have gotten into power. And so he creates all these opportunities for Biff to take over. We think Biff is the villain, but he's just sort of maybe he's more of an opportunist. So, but yeah, these archetypes. It's really interesting how maybe they took an Egyptian legend and modernized it for us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have loads of solar Egyptian symbolism in the Back to the Future trilogies. I mean, that is. I mean, they kind of turned the Doc Brown character on his head because, in part 2, it could be just for theatrics, but I mean, in part 2, he's constantly warning Marty of the dangers of time travel, which you see, that's the one of the things I really like about the trilogy is they really get the time travel notion correct. The whole idea of creating an alternative reality, of going back in time and, creating that would happen if you had, a time machine and you did stuff like that. That would happen. But then in part 3, what's interesting with Doc Brown is he ignores his own advice. He wants to stay behind. So he's a bit of a hypocrite there.
He started it all. He's warning us about time travel. I'm like, well, why did you get it started in the first place?
Right, and then at the very end of part 3, even when the time machine's destroyed, he can't help himself and he builds another one. So the Doc Brown character. I mean, they're great movies. I love the Back to the Future movies. I just love the way they are so multi-layered and how they use the numbers. And the 88 miles an hour, I think is fantastic. And the whole thing with Marty being Horus or Apollo, and the one father being the Osirian killed and resurrected figure, and Isis, and Biff Tannen being Typhon. I just love those movies, and I just love the way they hide the esoteric symbolism. I mean, some of it's just so subtle. I mean, the one thing I really liked is, no one notices this, is in part 2, when you see when Marty goes back in time, and it's the alternative reality. It's the Biff verse, basically, and he goes into the Biff Tannen Museum, which is next to the casino, and there's the wax figure of Biff there. Biff is actually holding a golden horseshoe in his hand, and that's fascinating because that's anticipating part 3, where Doc Brown is killed by Biff Tannen's ancestor for shoeing his horse. So it's just little things like that, and then you have the whole interplay with the Statler Toyota dealership in the first movie, which is where the movie it opens with that and then it ends with that, so it literally goes back to the future. And then in part 3, when he goes back to 1885, he walks into Hill Valley, which is an oxymoron, by the way, Hill Valley. And he sees the sign for the Statler horse trader, who's obviously the ancestor of the Toyota dealer. It's just little things like that are just really great to pick up upon. And it just goes to show you that when these guys are making these movies, they're really detail-oriented. They go to all kind of lengths to incorporate and hide these very little subtle clues that, reference things in different times in their movies. And that's really, go ahead.
It's really deep because you did mention the numbers, which, unless somebody went and looked it up, there's no way the average person probably knows that October 10th is 88 days to the end of the solar year. The 10:04 that you mentioned on the clock, and the 88 miles per hour sync Marty to the sun.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The one thing that's always interesting to look for when you're taking a look at these movies is numbers. Numbers in the background, numbers that are repeated, things like that. And 88 miles an hour, I mean, that that's drilled into your head. 10:04 is drilled into your head. You'll see this again being used in movies such as the first Matrix film, when Neo's brought on board the Nebuchadnezzar. The nameplate of the ship is Mark 311. That's a biblical reference, and again, that's a Christ allegory. In Dark City, when Murdoch wakes up in a room, he's in room, I believe, 614, and his name's John. That's a reference to John 6:14, which is another Christ allegory. In Black Swan, when she looks at the billboard with Beth McIntyre, you'll see the date of February 12th. That's a reference to that's a birthday of a Russian dancer named Anna Polova. So this is a good way. So for me, numbers are a very good way to really prove, because a number doesn't lie, to prove that, these guys know what they're doing and they're incorporating this stuff intentionally. So that's one of the things I really like to look for in movies, just numbers, the 88 miles an hour, the 10:04, October 4th. That's all very critical to analyzing these films.
You want to do that now?
So, Rob, we're up against a break, so hold tight.
Sure.
Let's take the break. When we come back, we'll have more conversation with Robert Sullivan IV.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Hey, Solana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe?
SpaceboyUniverse.com.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universal. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Ron.
Okay, we're back with our guest, Robert Sullivan IV, and I was going to ask you for a little clarification, Robert. Now, a lot of these things we're seeing in cinema and film is based on archetypes, which is something put forth by Carl Jung and his notion of collective unconsciousness. So how do you start? Where's the starting point to get these archetypes into our unconsciousness? How far back does it go, and why does it keep going?
Well, it's one of those things where it's there, it's in our unconscious, so we don't actually know they're there. And the idea is they've just been there all along. And it's the archetypes. One of the ways to look at them is they're pictographed on the tarot cards. The sun, the hero, the moon, the lovers, the villain, the hermit, and it's very powerful imagery. And you can look at it as cause and effect, or effect and cause. That the movie makers, I believe, they know what they're doing. They use these archetypal imageries, these archetypal characters, to consciously draw us in. But you have to remember also that movie makers are subject to this as well, so they could be unconsciously incorporating the archetypes into their movies without knowing it, or archetypal imagery or archetypal themes. Ancient religions, Kabbalah, tarot, alchemy, all this mysticism. And I get into that in the book. For example, one of the best examples to see the Gnostic demiurge on film is the Ed Wood movie Glen or Glenda. And I am 100% convinced that Wood had no familiarity with Gnosticism, the notion of a lesser god who pulled the strings on the material world. Yet there it is in his movie. So, it's one of those things where, this is coming out of Wood's unconsciousness also. But like you get into movies, and especially movies like, the blockbusters, like the Harry Potter movies or Star Wars. You have the archetypes there. And it's just, they repeat themselves. It's Harry Potter, it's Luke Skywalker, it's Neo, it's Frodo Baggins. They all have the hermit figure, Kenobi, Gandalf, Morpheus, who's the other one there that I'm leaving out, forget. But it's the notions of this archetypal imagery relating to tarot, astrology, the moon, the sun, everything that's been part of our civilization. So it's a cause and effect. I believe the filmmaker, and you read books by like Joseph Campbell. That's the,
which I have.
Yeah, that's the ultimate one, the Hero with a Thousand Faces. You read that, and you're going to see those comparative mythology, archetypal components, in Star Wars, The Matrix.
Star Wars is not even trying to hide it. I believe Lucas read Joseph Campbell and then just went and wrote Star Wars.
Right. No, if in fact, that's absolutely correct. In the copy of Joseph Campbell, the hero, the copy of the book that I have here, actually has a testimonial by Lucas on the book jacket. Where he basically says exactly what you said, where hey, this is influenced Star Wars. And you'll just see those elements, those components, one by one, fall like a deck of cards when you watch the Star Wars movies. Again, the Star Wars films, have this, the archetypal imagery, the religious symbolism, the moon, the sun, the darkness. You find in Harry Potter, it's the same story. With the farm boy, the nobody who gets plucked,
the Princess Bride,
to go battle the dark evil overlord. So it's very compelling. It's a very powerful immage. And again, these guys, embed this stuff with these very arcane themes, and then they carry it forward. The first three Star Wars movies. What is it? New Hope, Empire, and Jedi have the Campbell stuff. Then you get into the first three movies, Phantom Menace, Clones, and Sith, which is almost like a Christ allegory almost, where you have Anakin Skywalker as the chosen one, virgin birth, storms the temple. And then you got these new ones that they're writing, The Last Jedi, and what's the other one? The Balance of the Force Awakens, what they're doing in these ones is that they're trading on the notion of the Force being this ancient, religious mystical construct. So what they're relying on in this new set of movies is they're really using a lot of ancient religious constructs as well. You'll find elements of Gnosticism, of the different strains of Gnosticism in these new Star Wars movies, and such as The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. So these guys are very cognizant of this. They're very conscious of it. And like I said, you study and you watch it, you can really analyze, break down these movies on these very deep religious levels as well.
So basically, you get down to it, they've been telling the same story over and over and putting it just, different. It's in the future, or it's in the past, or it's now, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not all movies do, but I mean, you get the large summer blockbuster. I mean, the Star Wars. I mean, you think, look at the Star Wars movies, like 4, 5, and 6, the Lord of the Rings, the Matrix movies, the Harry Potter movies, most certainly. I mean, you're going to see. I mean, this is something I do in even like in the Chronicle of Narnia movies. I mean, it's the same incorporation of these elements. I mean, you have a lot of themes of light versus darkness. I mean, you have for example, I mean, let's just break this down for a little bit. I mean, for example, in the Chronicle of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, I mean, you have the sun god, Aslan, Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun, doing battle with whom? Well, who's the opposite of the sun? The wintry queen, who wants to keep, Narnia in perpetual darkness. Harry Potter, the sun god. What, house does he get sorted into at Gryffindor? At Hogwarts, Gryffindor, what's its totem? The lion, the sun. Who does he do battle with? Slytherin, the snake, the devil, darkness. So you'll see these Neoplatonic, solar, Manichaean, light versus dark, paradigms being used because it's very powerful. People relate to it. And again, you read, the works of Jung, Campbell, and, even the philosopher. I mean, it goes back in time. Plato talked about this, the Greek philosopher. He only called it the theory of forms. That's sort of the originator, I guess, of the archetypes, the theory of forms. But it's movie makers do rely on this stuff, and you look at a movie like Dark City, for example, which came out in 1998, and then you look the next year, The Matrix came out 13 months later. In March of 1999, I believe. If you look at those two movies, I mean, they're both Gnostic films, but it's almost the same movie. I mean, they parallel each other just incredibly, and so you are correct when you say that Hollywood does sometimes recycle itself, but occasionally they do go off beat and follow different formats and stuff like that. But I mean, you're right. You look at a movie like Star Wars, and then you look at Harry Potter. I mean, these movies overlap, with these elements. No question about it.
Well, something I was reading in your book, a guy comes up over and over again that you mentioned. So I want to know, what is his significance when we talk about, archetypes and collective unconscious, and that is Pythagoras. Most of us just know him for a mathematical theorem, but is there more to him than just math?
Right. He ties into Freemasonry big time. Pythagoras is a Greek mathematician, and he ties into a lot of Freemasonic lore and legend. For instance, I mean, the Worshipful Master, that's the guy who runs the Masonic Lodge, wears around his neck the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared always equals c squared. This is also known as the 47th proposition of Euclid. In the Masonic lore, Pythagoras is the mathematician, and of course this ties into the whole idea of geometry, perfection, the great architect of the universe creating the universe using geometry, and Pythagoras is basically drawing down mathematics from the heavens. But it has to do with Pythagoras also, it really ties into the high degrees of Freemasonry, and this is what I wrote my first book about, this one particular ceremonial known as the Royal Arch of Enoch. And it's a long story. I'll try to break it down as quickly as I can because it's a very dense talking point. But you have Pythagoras being one of two people who restores antediluvian wisdom back to mankind. In the Royal Arch of Enoch mythos, as it were, you have Enoch building the subterranean treasure vault with this knowledge that he learned from the interacting with these angels and fallen angels in his heavenly journey. Anyway, he gets word that God's going to destroy the earth with the flood, and Enoch conceals this wisdom upon two pillars in a subterranean vault. And in the Masonic lore, the information encoded on the two pillars is restored by two people. One is Pythagoras, and the other is a god coming out of Hellenistic Egypt known as Hermes Trismegistus. So Pythagoras is critical within Freemasonry and within Freemasonic lore. And then you get into the Pythagorean mysteries with numbers, and again, he is a archetypal Christ image, figure. I mean, I think he was crucified when he died. I mean, like he had a band of apostles that he traveled around with, spreading sacred knowledge, trying to help people out. Essentially, the whole notion of a Pythagorean band, a group of people who form together to spread wisdom, to spread light, to combat darkness. So, Pythagoras definitely ties into Freemasonry in a pretty important way. But no, I mean, yeah, he's critical, when it comes to math and numbers and history. He's one of these mystery school guys. So, yeah, Pythagoras, very important to say the least.
Interesting. He kept coming up, and I was like, there must be a significance to this. I was like, I must make sure I ask you. But as I was reading in your book, and as this actually, more I thought about it, it didn't come as a great surprise to me because these guys were funny, but they were intelligent. And so when you said in your book, if you want to see the collective unconscious at work from Jung, just watch Monty Python's The Holy Grail.
Well, that's right. It's the whole King Arthur motif. It's the, this is something I got into in my first book as well. The Arthurian legend is a great example of this. I mean, it's the sun. The whole Arthurian legend is just a solar motif where King Arthur is the sun. The round table is the zodiac wheel. The knights are the particular houses of the zodiac. Guinevere is Cancer, who sits next to him on the one side. Lancelot is Leo, who sits next to him on the other side. So anytime you're dealing with the Arthurian legend, and by the way, the best movie to see this solar symbolism presented is the John Borman version, Excalibur. This is the movie. I broke this down in my first book, The Royal Arch of Enoch, because it's just one giant solar allegory. But again, with the Monty Python, is a great example of this because the Monty Python take on it can't escape it. Here's the Monty Python, the English comedy troupe, making this story about King Arthur, and you still have in this these astronomical solar allegories occurring in it. I mean, it's just like they couldn't escape it themselves. I mean, if you watch the movie, just right off the bat, when you watch King Arthur, prancing around the countryside with his two coconuts with Patsy, what's the emblem? On his tunic.
Sun.
The sun.
Great
Right.
big sun.
Yeah, exactly. He's the sun. He's a solar avatar. He does battle with the nighttime sky, the archenemy of the sun, which is the Black Knight. They can't overcome one another. They're equal, so they call it a draw. I just love the movie's one of my all-time favorites. It's just a comedy classic. But again, anytime you're dealing with Arthur and these Arthurian legends, again, it's all collective unconscious. It all goes back to the sun, the moon, the zodiac, and even Monty Python couldn't escape it. And Monty Python also, I should point out, you have in the Monty Python troupe was the guy who made Brazil. His name
Terry Gilliam.
Terry Gilliam. He's very esoteric.
Mm-hmm.
You look at his movies, such as 12 Monkeys and things like that.
He was American.
These movies are overloaded with esoteric themes. Time Bandits.
Love Time Bandits.
Yeah, there you have a Gnostic demiurge with the supreme being. So yeah, you have these. When you're doing Gilliam, you definitely have esoteric themes going on. But no, with Monty Python and the Holy Grail, again, it's a retelling of the Arthurian legend, which in of itself is a solar allegory. So they couldn't escape it either.
So we've got these avatars, like the solar avatar you keep mentioning. Is there a significance to having that, or is it like these filmmakers don't even know they're doing it? Like you said, it's unconscious. I mean, I'm always looking, is there a reason, is a purpose, or it's just there because we can't help ourselves until we tell the story?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. I believe in most instances, these filmmakers are very cognizant of this and they incorporate it. I mean, it's the basis of religion. People go to church over the sun. Jesus is a solar avatar. Moses is the sun. There is astrological motifs in the religion of Islam. It's just these, when you're dealing with the sun and the solar avatars, the moon and the darkness. I mean, the character, like for example, the character of Neo, in the Matrix. I mean, it's Jesus Christ. I mean, he's called that. He's killed and resurrected. When he's brought on board the bridge of the ship, you see Mark 311, and the whole idea is, it's the solar savior. You'll find this again in Dark City with the John Murdoch character, Luke Skywalker. The name Luke is Lux, light. What light walks across the sky? The sun. Doing battle with darkness. The Sith Lords. Which the Sith comes from Seth, which is the Egyptian god of darkness. So all this is very, religious. This is all embedded in our psyche, all embedded in our subconscious minds. These filmmakers are aware of it, so they just are retelling this ancient mythology. You can call it Christianity, you can call it Zoroastrianism, Gnosticism, Manichaeanism. These are all ancient theologies that go back to time immemorial. That everything. You can look at fairy tales, nursery rhymes. Are based. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack is the sun, Jill is the moon. The arch or the hill they are going up is the zodiac to reach Aquarius at the summer solstice to fetch his pail of water or his water pitcher. This is all the sun, the moon, the zodiac, and these guys are aware of it. So they incorporate these astrological archetypes, motifs into the movies. It's very powerful. These guys make money hand over fist on this stuff. They know what they're doing. I've been asked this before, in other interviews. I'll say it here. If you just break it down, on just forget the esoteric imagery for a minute. Just, if you just break it down, you walk into a movie theater. You're walking into a church-like setting, sitting in a pew to receive light, to receive wisdom, that's being projected onto a giant, screen from light. It's light generation.
Wow.
So this is very, powerful, motifs going on here. It's akin to going to a church, quite literally.
Blew my mind just a little bit there, and maybe I won't go to movies anymore. Now I feel like I'm being indoctrinated. So.
But I want the key is just be aware that they're doing it. Because
sure.
If you watch it and you see this, it makes the film much more interesting to watch. And to keep, this is the thing that I love to do is to try to find what these filmmakers are trying to tell me on an esoteric level. That's challenging. So, don't be afraid of it. If you see it, try to find it yourself and be cognizant of it. This is one of the reasons I wrote the book is, and like I said, you won't find it in every movie. Not all movies do this, but a lot of them do. And, try to find out what the movie maker, and producers are going for here. Are they trying to tell you a religious allegory? Is this a Gnostic movie? Are they trying to convey alchemy to you? Does the character go through a transition? In order to incorporate a message, or are they using parallel imagery? For example, this is done intentionally in Time Bandits, for instance. The face of the Supreme Being, it's the giant menacing face. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's the godlike figure who turns out to be kind of a huckster.
Man behind the curtain, huh?
Right, the man behind the curtain. You find this again in the Matrix films, where he finally confronts Deus Ex Machina at the very end of the third one. It's the giant menacing face. which he ultimately, saves him. So it's keep an eye out for that's another thing these guys like to do is incorporate parallel imagery to resurrect imageries that you've already seen, and they do this with loads. I mean, these guys have a vast palette. I'll just end on this. I mean, they use, believe it or not, I mean, you get into the levels of esotericism, music, costuming, even the actual actors and actresses they use can be used to bring cultural valences to the movie that they're making to draw upon other movies. So that's an interesting study as well.
Well, with the Matrix films, I feel like they're not even trying to hide anything. I feel like it's almost right all out there because, I mean, they call him the One, and like you say, resurrection and dying, and he's the savior of humanity against these machines. It's like they're not even, trying to hide it. But what I appreciated about reading your take on it is it spurred me to go look up something while in the middle of reading yours. So, you mentioned the book Neo picks up very early on in the first film, and he's hiding his media that he's bootlegging in this book called Simulation by Jean, I don't know if I got his name, this is French, Baudrillard.
That's right.
So I went and looked that up, so I figured, there must be a huge significance there. You wouldn't have mentioned it. So I read that he claims our current society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs, that human experience is a symbolization of reality. So basically they're saying what has happened is postmodern culture is our society has become so reliant on these models and maps and I guess archetypes.
That's right.
That we have lost all contact with the real world that preceded the map. So the Matrix is our simulation of the real, and that's all we have to rely on. We don't know what the real is anymore.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, and this is sort of, by using that book, that's one of the things that the filmmakers, the Wachowski siblings, are trying to convey, that that the reality is fictitious. It's a very Gnostic movie. Especially the first one. The whole idea with the illusory reality coming to gnosis, coming to the real world. So yeah, I mean, those movies, the three Gnostic, the three Matrix movies, especially the first one. I mean, almost everything you see in those movies has a Gnostic, bent to it on, what's real, what isn't. So the use of the book. I mean, you have Gnostic overtones in Alice in Wonderland, and of course you got Follow the White Rabbit. You have, when Neo goes to the real world, he goes through the looking glass. So it's a, Alice in Wonderland motif. The whole idea with the book, with what you're talking about, your breakdown on, I couldn't have said it better myself. The breakdown of the reality that we're living in being a simulation based on other models. Absolutely correct. And it's just an example of the levels that these filmmakers will go to incorporate this mysticism to convey a message, and in the case of the Matrix movies, it's very Gnostic. It's very ancient religion. I mean, the first Matrix movie is based on the philosophies of a Gnostic medium or theologian, I guess is the better word I should use, named Valentinus. I mean, if you read Valentinus, that's the Matrix film. So again, you're dealing with ancient theologies. Mystical religions, mystical belief systems put on celluloid. It's very powerful.
Well, I was thinking about that, I was wondering, does that mean, where are we now? Are we supposed to be living in a matrix because we're relying so heavily on archetypes to tell stories or communicate even? Is that where we are now? Did that mean life was more real, quote unquote, before like industrialization? But since this goes back to Pythagoras and all this stuff, it's been there since humanity's been there. So, is this our reality, and that's just all we know, or was there something that we've replaced it with, and we still don't know what that is? And it hurts my head a little.
The Matrix movies are Valentinian Gnosticism. Valentinius said what he was it ties into Christianity. But you have to be familiar with what Valentinus said. Valentinus, it goes back to the creation of our reality. According to Valentinus, there is this unknowable alien god out there. And through this god, there are these emanations called aeons. And one of them is cast out named Sophia. And it's a long story, but she's cast out and she gives birth to this lesser god known as the Demiurge, who is the creator of our reality. And what Valentinus said was that our reality is fake, that nothing that we are seeing is here. It's all an illusion. And the way to break through this is to obtain gnosis, to become cognizant of this. And the Demiurge rules this fake reality with a bunch of helpers known as archons that keep mankind asleep. He wants to keep mankind in stasis and prevent them from waking up. In the Valentinian model, the illuminator figure who comes into the reality to help mankind is Jesus Christ. And you'll see that this is the parallel going on. It's a retelling of this ancient religion, this ancient religious doctrine, where you have Neo, who is the Christ Savior figure, the Gnostic Christ, who's come into reality to discover this phony reality, to light the divine spark, to bring mankind out of stasis. You have the Demiurge, you have the creator of the material world, the Matrix, who is the architect. Great name to give this guy. He turns up in the sequel. And then, of course, the Archons are the agents, Agent Smith, whose sole purpose is to keep mankind asleep, keep them in stasis, keep them down. So the first Matrix movie is this retelling of this Valentinian religion, coming out of the second, third century. It's a heresy. It relates to Christianity, but it is considered a heresy. And this is, Gnosticism is a very something Hollywood really likes to use, because ultimately the Gnostic religion and the Gnostic theologies are all about self-discovery and self-awakening. And that's a very powerful medium. That's a very powerful story. So you will find Hollywood constantly relying on these Gnostic movies or theologies, to tell these stories of self-discovery, self-awakening, to know thyself. And The Matrix is a great example of that. And that really is a great example of a Valentinian Gnostic fable, that the reality that we're living in is illusory. It's not real. And that you got to escape it by, waking up to it, by obtaining gnosis, to learning the truth. You get pulled out into the real world. And then you're doing battle with the archons and the demiurge to obtain gnosis, to return to a higher godhead. That's ultimately what the goal of all this was.
That it's a dense movie. The more you talk about it, so it's, and I appreciate it on many levels now. Just the first one, I didn't care for the last two, but anyway, we're at a hard break here. We'll come back and we'll finish up talking with Robert, because I got some interesting things for him.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lotta.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt and Bot vs. Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot. You're terminated. Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
And we're back with our guest tonight, Robert Sullivan IV, and we're talking about hidden meanings and archetypes in cinema and film, and having a great time. Now, I'm not putting you on the spot here, Robert, but I know you can speak to this subject, but I want to, and especially in relation to the Matrix, and that's about nihilism, but how I want to get into it is this way, and I know you've not seen the animated show Rick and Morty, but that it is all about nihilism. And in your book, you talk about when that's presented, it's existential nihilism that argues that life without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value, and that is really in your face in this animated series. Well, the main character is Rick Sanchez. He's a grandfather, but his motivations and his excuse for why he behaves as he does so recklessly and doesn't care about anyone or anything is because he's a scientist who has access to infinite numbers of realities, infinite universes, so he can forego meaningful relationships with his daughter and his grandchildren because he's access to multiple versions of them. And he says his whole life is about actually trying to get back to a point where McDonald's offered that Szechuan sauce. That's his series arc. So, but I'd like to talk about that whole concept of nihilism or existential nihilism, especially with the Matrix, where it's a post-apocalyptic nihilism. Machines have taken over, and what you have to say about that.
Well, that's right. It's the machines have taken over, and it's an idea that it's a destroy mentality that these guys have. And I mean the Matrix has it. You'll find it in movies like The Terminator as well. A nihilistic thread. It ties into Gnostic thought because it has to do with the reality that we're living in is phony. So there's a destructive thread to this. In it, you'll find this more. You'll find it in the Matrix, but a movie that comes to mind that probably has it a little bit better is Fight Club with Brad Pitt and Ed Norton, where their sole purpose is to wage this war against materialism and consumerism, which are the hallmarkers of the demiurge. So, I mean, absolutely. When you get into a Gnostic film, and it's about spiritual gnosis and the rejection of materialism, you get into this idea of the destruction of reality because it's bogus. So I mean that's what you kind of have. That's what you have going on in the Matrix is the idea that Neo is going to wake people up to this false reality. And in Fight Club with Brad Pitt and Ed Norton, it's the idea that we're going to achieve some sort of spiritual gnosis by beating each other up, but it's better than buying into this consumer reality, materialism, which is garbage. It is definitely there. And it's an interesting philosophy, and I like talking about it. And I like, another one that has it to a little bit different level is V for Vendetta with Alan Moore. Mm-hmm. Again, it's waging the war against Norse-Fire England because it is in of itself, not right. So anytime you're getting these films where you have characters who are trying to, go to a higher plane, a higher spiritual plane, you find this deep nihilistic thread of rejection of materialism, rejection of consumerism, and a war being waged in some form or fashion against the material world. Fight Club is a great movie to watch that in.
Well, again, talking about Baudrillard, where he says we're in a post-modern, I mean, we have to unpack that term, and post-nihilism. If we've entered a realm of post-nihilism, everything is bland neutrality. Now, I feel like, this is a wider commentary on society right now, where we're going into this world where if your feelings get hurt, that's the worst thing that can happen to you, and you must be silenced. So everything has to be so bland and neutral that it feels like this is the new version of the Matrix, where you can't have any volatile thoughts or feelings or opinions, or at least you have to keep them to yourself. I mean, maybe you don't want to speak on that because it's, a larger issue, but all of this talk and reading your book makes me think how to apply this to other things in life, and it does lead me to think deeper about it. So I appreciate that a lot.
No, well, thank you, and I tend to agree. I mean, I think that political correctness has gone way too far, and I mean, even you go back and watch. I mean, now, you go back for I watch movies that were made in like the 1980s and things like that. I mean, you just watch them now and think, oh, they would never do that now.
Mm-hmm.
They would, and it's like you said. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess anybody can be offended by anything. I mean, if you're going to boil it down, I mean, anybody. I mean, why have any speech? I mean, anybody could be offended by anything. It's ridiculous. I mean, and who ever heard of such a thing? I mean, when I went to college, I wanted to be challenged. I mean, you have to be exposed to alternative modalities and ways of thinking and philosophies. You have to be exposed to them. Even if they're flawed, to find out what's wrong with them. And this whole idea that you can't challenge someone's belief system or
to make them think, but if they don't have that critical thinking and they're not self-aware enough, it's just it just bounces off a wall of stupidity.
Exactly, you're dealing with an idiot. I mean, if a person can't even listen to an alternative argument, I mean, you might you're dealing with a wall. I mean, it's the Pink Floyd song. You're another brick in the wall. And that's unfortunately what many people are against. I mean, like I said, you understand when you get exposed to it, you'll find out what's wrong with the modality or with the philosophy, but you understand why maybe it's accepted or why someone. I mean, it's like Marxism. I'm not a Marxist, but I had to study it. I had to learn about it. I talked to Marxists, and I had to listen to Marxists to know why it was wrong.
What you don't like about it, yeah.
I mean, and the problem with Marxism is it runs contrary to human nature. No human will. I mean, you watch this stuff today. These people talking about socialism on TV and socialism. They don't have the first clue what they're talking about, because under they say, well, what's healthcare going to cost? And what's this going to cost? And what's this going to cost? They haven't studied the Marxist model. They don't know the first thing they're talking about. In a socialist Marxist model, there's no hospitals, there's no disease, there's no crime. It's a perfected world. So when I hear someone say we've got to charge, we got to have socialism, we got to charge 70% or whatever it is. If you're going for socialism, there's no government, there's no police, there's no army. Have you ever read Karl Marx? That's what they say. I mean, it's not me saying it. Go read these guys who say it. If you're going to have a worker revolution and have a communist Marxist society, there's nothing. It looks like the Smurfs, literally. I'm not saying that as a joke. If you want to see what a socialist society looks like, it's the Smurfs. Everyone looks the same. Everyone dresses the same. Everyone lives free. There's no armies. There's no hospitals. There's no police. Because there's no crime, there's no disease. Marx said, once you achieve the socialist utopia, disease disappears. Cancer, sickness, homelessness, all that goes away. Crime is a symptom of capitalism. Once you eliminate the capitalist world, there's no more need for a police force because there will be no more criminals. So, when I hear these people talk, they don't know what the first thing they're talking about. And, and I had to go to college. I had to hear alternative arguments and hear this to be able to point it out. And, I had to talk to Marxists and interact with them to understand what the problem is. But I mean, if you can't even, listen to an alternative way of thinking or a different modality or a counter argument, I mean, you're an idiot. I mean, you have to hear the negative argument to be able to craft another argument against it or one way or another. And that's sorely lacking in our society today.
Critical thinking, basic, understanding, and I've saying this on multiple broadcasts we've done. There is a complete lack of emotional maturity, and I don't know if it's always been there or social media has brought it out, and we can see it now more often. But it's like grown adults never got past the schoolyard recess of being that level of being hurt, like, oh, I'm offended by this. It's the worst thing that can happen to me. And everybody needs to change everything to my way of thinking because I'm hurt. I'm like, no, that's not how the world works.
No, I agree with you, and it's. I mean, it is. It's definitely the advent of the internet has definitely has contributed to this monster. But one of the movies, it's one of the movies I'm watching. I'm analyzing in this new book is a movie that came out in 2001. It's a movie called Donnie Darko. It's a fascinating movie. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to get into it because I'm writing it right now. But there's a great scene in that movie where it has to do with kids overcoming fear and being bullied, and it's a different reality. I mean, and the guys like, oh well, we need more love. We need more understanding. And the one kid says, no, if you're being bullied, sign up for karate lessons after school. And kick someone's butt. What's wrong with you? And that's really the moral of the story.
That's my gut instinct.
Right. I mean, they're talking about love and understanding. Oh, you can't do that. And, and the one kid says, you're being bullied. Take karate lessons or go work out in the gym and kick someone's butt. And that's what I love. And we just came out of the holidays. I mean, the Christmas Story, with Ralphie, he's not, he gets bullied by the bully. I mean, he punches him in the nose. And what happens to the bully? I mean, he's exposed for the coward that he is. When you stand up to the bully, they fold up like a cheap suit. So, this whole, I agree with you. It's just this dumbing down and, who ever heard of such a thing?
And it was like, have people always been like this? Because Spaceboy and I are in our late 40s, I'll tell you that. So we grew up pre-internet.
You're my age.
Yeah.
You're my age.
So we grew up in that time before cable, and then we had cable, and then before internet, then we had internet. So we've seen
both sides
of society. Okay, so I don't recall this level of crybabiness. I don't know what else to call it. Pre-1990, whatever.
Right. No, I agree. I was born in 1971.
72.
Right. So, okay,
69.
I'll be 48 this year. And, it's in the 1970s growing up, it wasn't there. I mean, like you said, even with cable TV in the 80s, it wasn't there. I mean, it's just been this phenomenon that's come out of the last 10 years. I was telling, someone the other day, I said, I've never seen anything like it. I said, where, there are people who I've voted for who haven't won an election. And when that happened, I didn't run around like a crybaby. I didn't run around smashing things or parading in the street. I'll tell a quick story. And you'll relate to this. In 1980, when Ronald Reagan won, we had Republican rule for 12 years. We had the 2 terms of Reagan, and then we had Bush 41. So I came of age. When Reagan was elected, let's say I would have been 8 years old, and then 12 years old, I would have been 20. So, I came of age under a Republican presidency, Reagan and then Bush the one time.
Yes, I did too.
Right. When in 1992, I was living in England. When Bill Clinton won, a Democrat, I didn't break down. I didn't have a nervous breakdown. I didn't run around and throw a brick through a window or cry or scream. My attitude was, he won the election. Let's give him a chance and see what happens. Nowadays you see, when an election doesn't go your way, you see these wimps, these crybabies. Who ever heard of such a thing? Like I said, I had 12 years of Reagan and Bush. When Clinton won, the Democrat, I didn't freak out. I didn't lose it, or cry, or melt down or anything like that. Who ever heard of such a thing? It's insane.
And I think it was the attitude, Rob, that is like, from my perspective of my age, is that, parents were more like, okay, get yourself up, dust yourself off, get over it.
Right.
And
we
move
weren't
forward.
coddled.
Yes, exactly.
Right. If you need help, we'll help you. But, it was exactly it. Exactly. I remember, living in England. Go do it. Go there, go to college, study, interact, find out what you got to find out, learn different things, learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of the life experience. You have to be exposed to the things you disagree with to find out why you disagree with them or why you think they're wrong.
I agree with that too. But what I got from college was learning how to work the system, meaning in order to pass this class with the grade I want, I got to figure out what does this professor like to hear and spit it back to him regardless of what I thought about it.
Yeah, there's some truth to that too. Unfortunately, but that's true too. That's true. But what I got that out of the American side of it. I went to Oxford for a year.
Oh wow.
And that's where, I mean, you walk around Oxford, I mean, you're going to run into neo-fascists, communists, skinheads. I mean, you're going to run the gamut of different philosophies and attitudes, and people who don't like this but like that. I mean, and people who are like, I remember going, when I was over there was the Karl Marx Club. These are smash the state essentially, and you have to be exposed to that or see it to find out, okay, well, what are these people saying, and what's wrong with it, or well, what's right with it, or why do they like it, and what do they see in it that well, why are they drawn to it? So to me, it's like a study in psychology and things like that. Why are people drawn here? I mean, it's critical. I mean, it's critical to the human experience. You can just break it down. Why do people like these movies? What do these movies have in common that are drawing people to them? What do they have in common? Well, maybe what do they not have in common? So, I mean, that to me is, the critical thinking, which, is sorely lacking in today's world. I totally agree with you.
And that's a perfect way to kind of sum this up. That's why I appreciated reading your book on symbolism, because it's critical thinking. It's like, well, what are they trying to tell me? What is their meaning? Do I agree with it? Why do I agree with it or not disagree with it? And I can learn from it. And as the kids say today, to stay woke. It's a way to stay awake and aware, so you don't, as the Who say, you won't get fooled again.
Well, that's right. I mean, and like I said, one of the things that was really great for me in analyzing these movies, and one of the things that I'm really pride myself on is finding the context of what these movies are about, because you can have, like, for example, like the number 88 in Back to the Future means one thing, but that same number is used in the movie The Exorcist where it means something else. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's constantly, I hear a lot of people talking about, like, oh, it's all Illuminati mind control and this and that. Believe me, this stuff goes a lot deeper, and you got to find out the context, what these guys are trying to tell you. They use numbers, they use colors, they use actors, they use, they have, like I said, a vast palette, and it's the context. What are they, what are the circumstances that this movie has that makes it different from that movie or makes it the same? And that's really important to doing the analysis of these films. How are they the same? How are they different? How are they using this number here as opposed to the same number being used but a little bit differently here? Why is it different? Why is it the same? That's really critical to understanding this occultism going on in these films.
That's why I'm always telling Solana to keep awake and, don't just take things for face value.
Especially when you're in Las Vegas.
Yeah, especially when you're in Las Vegas. That's another nose story altogether. Rob, we're about to hit the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to plug away. So this is your opportunity to pitch, to tell people where to find you and all that good
What's
stuff.
Coming up for you and all that good stuff.
Right. Well, thank you guys, Solana and Spaceboy, for having me on the Spaceboy Universe tonight. It was my pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it. I thought the show was terrific, and we'll definitely do it again.
Awesome.
If you're interested in me, my name is Robert W. Sullivan IV, and that's my website, Robert W. Sullivan IV for the letter 4, Roman numerals, robertwsullivan.iv.com. That's really the easiest way to find me in my books. I have 4 books out. 2 on movie Symbolism, 1 on Freemasonry, and a work of fiction also. These are available on all major online retailers, print edition, ebooks, Kindle, Amazon, Nook, Barnes & Noble. Again, my website is www.robertwsullivan.iv.com. Links to buy the books. There's a whole page on events and appearances with social media appearances. Not social media appearances, radio and TV shows I'll be doing, such as this one. I know we were talking off break that I'll be on with Solaris next Saturday night. And this website is constantly updated with my events and appearances, links to social media. Follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to where, when my appearances go on YouTube, I'm constantly updating that as well. Information about me on the site, Again, links to buy the book. They're on all the major online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. And again, my name is Robert W. Sullivan IV. My website is www.robertwsullivan.iv.com, IV for the fourth.com. And again, links to buy the books. It's all there. It's a very easy page to navigate. And again, thank you guys for having me on Spaceboy Universe tonight. It was a pleasure to be here. And again, maybe in a couple months we'll do it again.
Sure, we'll reach out to you. Plus, we'll look forward to your book.
And I'm going to read that. We'll have you back for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent. And again, check it out. And again, it's available on all the major online retailers. And the page is very easy to navigate.
Well, thank you, Rob, for being a part of the show tonight. And we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Excellent. Thank you for having me on. And like I said, when the interview goes up on YouTube, I'll spread it around as an archive, and we'll talk, and maybe we'll schedule something in the coming months.
Excellent. Have a great evening.
Okay, you too, guys. Thank you for having me on.
All right.
You going to go break?
Yeah, I guess it is time for the break.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, I've been very distracted tonight with Robert talking and the new chat room.
He's been smiling and nodding his head because he agrees with everything.
We'll be right back, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lotta.
Greetings, Space Cadets. Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Solaris Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
I'm Solaris Blurvid, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
All right, we're back. Yes, this is my voice, and I'm glad to announce it onto the broadcasting system.
I think you were just enthralled by the conversation.
Yeah, I get that way. I do apologize. It makes me a terrible broadcaster, but especially towards the end, I was kind of holding back because...
I know you really wanted to comment about society and social media and listening to other points of view. I could see you over there. I could see it's a great big grin on your face, but you were holding back because I knew that would be a can of worms we didn't have time for.
But because being the oldest one in this conversation trio tonight, I've seen the 70s and we
have perspective.
We definitely have perspective.
So does he.
And so I could relate and understand where he was coming from, and things have changed a lot since
Not
the 70s.
for the better. And I was telling you earlier, because we were speaking on this same level about mean comments and, things. I'm kind of pleased that I'm not going to live much longer, probably, because it's like that meme from Futurama, Professor Farnsworth, I don't want to live on this planet anymore. I mean, if this is what we've got to deal with, it's time to go or find a way out, you know what I mean? But...
maybe you can hitch a ride on that rocket to Mars.
I just not if millennials are going, but you know what I mean? I don't. Every decade thinks that this is the end. This is the worst. I'm sure in the 80s we thought, I can't believe society is like this.
And I want to point out that not every millennial is.
It's a certain overarching attitude. Yeah. It's just, if your feelings are hurt, it's not the worst thing that happens to you. Somebody could get a weapon and slice your kneecaps off. That might be the actual worst thing that happens to you. But if I don't hurt your feelings about it and your feelings aren't hurt, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, again, it's the post-truth world we live in. And I learned that from learning about the Bilderberg group, where the truth does not matter.
Let me throw something at you, Sir Lana. You know how they say that, for example, back in the 50s, you had the segregation, race-wise, and then you had certain people that had a certain perspective, that the only way to get beyond that was time.
Oh yeah, how do you end racism? Wait for all the racists to die out, and then that doesn't get taught to the next generations.
Are we? At that point, when I say we
are the fossils that have to die off, so that this new birth of neutrality and nobody's feeling gets hurt.
This utopia that people want.
I contribute to that by not giving my opinion on social media.
Well, I hate the fact that I can't speak on certain things, and I have to self-censor myself. Because if I hurt somebody's feelings, then they're going to
that's it. You're done.
Reach out and attack me. Exactly, because I was watching a YouTube video of a man a scientist, in fact, who was attacked by someone, and she reached out to his job to try to get him fired, and just that idea of somebody trying to reach out and try to kill my job.
Because you have a different opinion, you're the greatest evil and you must be stamped out and published or eradicated. That is scary stuff. And if you're not religious, that's fine. If you don't believe in the Bible, that's fine. But one of the apostles did ask Jesus, how will we know we're living in the end times, the apocalypse, the end of everything? And Jesus said, when good is evil and evil is good. So all the things we've learned that were bad, we were told were bad, are acceptable now. Mm-hmm. And they're the right thing to do. So when things get flipped like that, this is the end times. And we say that every year, every decade. But I feel like I am staring it in the face. So we're looking down the barrel. And I know you don't come to Spaceboy Universe to get happy things, happy messages. Like, this is the truth, and the truth is not pretty, and it's pretty depressing.
Yeah, very recently I've thought to myself about, what happened. When I was a kid and we played with other children,
I didn't play. I did a little bit.
No, but you see where I'm going with this? It's like, it wasn't like, if they said something mean or whatever.
And you got over it and you're back together the next day. Like It never happened. Like every day's a reset.
I get very sad because, I have friends that I've known since I was a kid. And I worry and I self-censor myself not to hurt their feelings in any way.
Well, it's like they didn't, what happened to emotional maturity? I'm like, okay, you think like that and I think like this. I'm fine with you thinking that. You go on your whole life, think that way. I'm going to think this way. That doesn't bother me. Mine shouldn't bother you. I don't think less of you because you think about this topic like that. That's fine. That's like what Robert said. You need to be mentally challenged so you can form your opinions better, but not to the point where, oh, well, I'm correct and you're incorrect, so we must get rid of the incorrect things. Because it's your opinion, it's your feeling. It doesn't make you right or correct. It's just how you feel and how you think. You're not more entitled than anyone else.
I like to think to some degree time has calloused me, and I mean...
You're emotionally callous.
I'm emotionally callous, exactly. That's exactly the nail on the coffin there, if you will.
Well, I'm not going to name names. I'm not even going to tell you what category this person fits into my life, but there's a person that when this person says this XYZ about certain topics that keep coming over, I'm like, I want to say, I can hear that you feel strongly about it, but again, it's your opinion. It doesn't make you right, and it doesn't give you the right to make decisions for someone else either. And I feel like I do need to convey this to that person, and that's, it's not anybody y'all know, so don't worry about it. Well, that person is a grown person, and they're older than me, and they ought to know better.
I really think that the issue here is social media. It's been a wonderful tool to reach out and connect with people, but it really leaves people with a disconnect.
Well, if you're irresponsible about it, you go in there and act like...
think about it, is that there's no
repercussions?
Thank you. I was like, and I...
That's why marriage works.
What, did you fill the blanks in for me?
Fill in your blanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Nobody, you could say whatever you want to. Like, for example, when you're in front of somebody, it's a whole different ballgame altogether. You're polite.
You're face-to-face.
You're polite.
Because you could get punched at any time. It's different.
Possibly, yes. And so versus being behind a screen 1,000 miles away from that individual, and, so...
well, going back to Robert's point that he brought up, like, well, if you're being bullied, all you need is love. Sure, I think that's great, but maybe punch that bully in the face first and let them know you're not to be trifled with. Then maybe you could start a dialogue like, what the Sam Hill is your problem? Let's talk it out. Maybe we could reach a nonviolent... I'm all for nonviolence when it works, sure. But, if it's brought to you, I know you're supposed to turn the other cheek, but on the other hand, I don't want to get bones broken either. So I understand both sides of that, but I don't understand stamping out a different opinion because it's different from yours. Or I had an opinion and it hurt your feelings. I did not set out to hurt your feelings. You just happen to have your feelings hurt. So therefore, I don't need to exist as a human. That's what bothers me. And that's what I think the world we're coming. Think about net neutrality. Think about, I know that's like, how in the world are you going to, I'm telling you something bigger is coming with that. Think about Article 13. Think about this world where everybody gets butthurt, so you need to be censored. So I'm telling you, free speech is going away. We're going to get monitored. It's going to come through net neutrality. Talking about the Matrix.
And we're going to be all packed into the empty Walmarts that will be new FEMA
that's
camps.
Taking it to the tinfoil hat world, but do be aware that that's a theory out there, just in case, all right? Just to educate yourself. But when I was reading his books, and especially I mean, there's countless websites and books and videos that break down these movies. Not just Robert, but he had some insights from, ancient text and myths. And so it made me think about The Matrix, as enjoyable as that film is on the surface. So if they're living in that Matrix world where you get up, you go to a job, you pay your taxes, as Morpheus was talking about, actually that world seems a lot better than the reality. Reality is humans are stuffed into this little underground thing. Sure, they're free, but they don't have a lot of places to go and a lot of options.
Originally, according to that movie, The Matrix was made to where it was the perfect utopia, and they
keep you occupied. Yeah.
And they couldn't. It broke down because the humans couldn't accept that as a reality. There has to be imperfection, and for the Matrix,
you don't trust it.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing. I think that goes back to the duality, the nature of reality is you can't have the good without the bad, you can't have the light without the dark. You can't have one opinion without an opposing opinion. That is the nature of life. When you try to stamp it out to a unification, that is the wrong part. So there has to be this duality to life. See, this stuff makes you think, or it should, and you need to question things, and that's why you can sit down and watch a movie, you can watch a cartoon like Rick and Morty and laugh, but there are so many layers, and Rick and Morty's not even trying to hide it, with some of their stuff. And Matrix is not even trying. I would argue that Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 are not even trying to hide it, because Lucas wrote that as a direct result of reading Joseph Campbell. And when I read Joseph Campbell, I looked at it like Campbell, he breaks down the archetypes and like, this is the hero's journey. This is what you're used to seeing. This is what it's like. To me, I read that and I said, oh, this is how you tell a story. This is how humans tell stories. I looked at it like that way. And I think Lucas looked at it, it's like, oh, this is how I'm going to tell my story based on what Campbell wrote that is already in our brains. So it made sense to me. So knowledge is power. And knowing is half the battle. No, knowing's half the battle. Where's that come from?
Knowledge is power. It comes from Schoolhouse Rocks, but the knowing is half the battle is G.I. Joe. Yes.
Good old G.I. Joe.
Took me a minute to get it out there.
But Morpheus says, welcome to the desert of the real. And that's, apocalyptic nihilism. It's a desolate, he's showing him inside the construct, the post-apocalyptic world where it's just, it's all blowing dust. It's just burnt buildings. There's nothing there. We're grown and cloned in vats, used as batteries. Well, that book that was referenced in Robert's cinema book by Baudrillard, I don't know if I'm saying that. I know it's French. I apologize. I'm Southern girl. I'm doing my best. Baudrillard is appropriate as well as the film's focus on simulated reality, because he's simulating what is supposed to be happening outside the Matrix, out in the real world. So you've got humans in these pods. Where are these pods at in this reality? Are they underground? Are they on the surface of the earth? How do they know what the earth looks like if they've been living inside this Matrix? How did they get woke like that? Western civilization and modernity as a whole have rejected meaning and objectivity in the Matrix. So the result is a loss of meaning of any sense. It's sort of Nietzschean, if you're familiar with Nietzsche's philosophy. So those ones and zeros, that's supposed to be the actual code of the Matrix, which is just computer code. So they're actually meaningless, and they dominate in a world under these computers. So they're meaningless to us, but it's actually the construct. So it's just really weird. So Baudrillard was saying materialism births nihilism. So the minute we start getting interested in things, collecting our Funko Pops, then life stops having meaning, which I am probably not a good example of this because I don't care about relationships with other people because people suck. They're the ones promoting this butthurt world we live in. So I don't want nothing to do with that, and I'm actually retreating into just my relationship with my husband here, or just the one or two close relationships I still maintain, and I'm not concerned about fostering, brotherly love or sisterly love or trying to get close with anyone else, because I'm like, y'all suck. You've proven it to me. There's a line I can't cross, so I'm not going anywhere near that line. I've taken it the wrong way, maybe. But as we were talking to Robert, if we're in post-nihilism, everything is bland neutrality, net neutrality. Don't say that because people don't like it, right? Stay neutral. Then there's no meaning in anything if everything is bland and neutral. Do you want to live in this world? Are we living? Is it the beginning of a new matrix? Like maybe we've been living in a matrix since we've been here, but it regenerates as something new to keep us distracted. Now we're all upset with social media and people say, so that keeps us distracted while, I don't know, maybe computer's nibbling on your toes when you don't know about it. And I don't know. It's a lot to take in, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe there's always more going on under the surface, and I feel like I want to go back and read some of Robert's other books. He has another book on symbolism. I think I read the first one. I think the one I read has Frankenstein on it and the DeLorean, or maybe I read the second one. I can't remember. But his book, The Royal Arch of Enoch, I think might be good because it talks about the impact of Masonic ritual and philosophy and symbolism on life. And I think there's a lot of things there that will find some influence that go back to ancient times. Also wonder if he's looked at Stargate movies and Stargate TV show. I feel like there's probably a lot there too.
There is a lot there, trust me, after my...
it's right there talking about Egypt.
Still binge watching. That's actually, when he was talking, I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds like Stargate, like I'm listening to a recap of Stargate, because I've been binge watching it since Christmas.
Well, that fascinates me because it's based loosely, I guess, on the movie that came out. It was an independent movie, and then these two other guys, independent of that movie, decided to base a TV series, which spawned another TV series, which spawned another TV series on this universe.
Stargate universe. And
Stargate Atlantis.
Stargate Atlantis.
But I guess the hypothesis there is ancient Egypt became into being because aliens landed and gave them some knowledge, and they built the pyramids, or they facilitated, and the pyramid shape is part of the aliens' ship structure. Mm-hmm. And they encouraged them to worship the aliens as gods because they had superior knowledge and technology.
And then the Jaffa will tell you that they are no gods.
Yeah. So, but in the movie, a scientist put that theory out, and he was laughed out of his profession, and it became a reject, a pariah.
Dr. Daniel Jackson.
So he couldn't do anything without being laughed at, and so the government found out about him, our government, and pulled him into this program because that's actually the answer to everything.
It was the lady that was a girl at the time when they discovered the Shapa Eye, or the Stargate, that she was the one that knew him and suggested that the military pulled him into the project because of his knowledge.
So he went from being ridiculed publicly to be pulled into a black budget government project where it turns out he was correct. So
Who would have thought we would be talking about Stargate tonight? I'm sure Solana's sick of it because I've been like...
I like Stargate SG-1.
I mean, you've seen me been binge watching it.
I never finished the whole series.
Really?
No, I never did.
Anyway, I've been... Yeah, Catherine was her name, Bob. Thank you. I knew it was something like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Baudrillard explains that tyranny under terrorism is the only result of a nihilistic society. So if we keep going on in a society that has no meaning, where we're based everything in materialism, it's naturally going to lend itself to tyranny. We will eventually, I guess, be so distracted with things, we'll let anybody rule us. I guess that's what he's trying to say. So in that movie, Morpheus is described by the robot computers as a terrorist linked with hackers because he's the radical in this matrix. So, saying free your mind. And how you do it is he offers you a pill to go down the rabbit hole. It's a lot of Alice in Wonderland imagery. So the imagery, we didn't really talk about specifics because that's all out there for you to see on the web, and I didn't want to bog the conversation down. It's something you could find anywhere. The checkered floor, it's like the Masonic Lodge. That's Neo's initiation in the drug trip that awakens him. It's like an LSD trip where supposedly your mind gets freed because your mind can go to places it's never been before due to this drug. This website I'm looking at says that it draws on Eastern and shamanic traditions where hallucinogenic experiences awaken the mind. So he has to go through this strange journey before he can see the real world, which seems like an allegory or a metaphor, but he also... So Morpheus is doing something physical linked to Neo in the Matrix, but Neo actually gets physically flushed out of his pod and they pick him up in the ship. So I never understood how are they linking to these people in the Matrix if the Matrix is a mental construct, not a physical one. I mean, I guess they wait for them to get freed with the drug or whatever kind of computer code. Maybe the pill is actually a computer code. You know what strikes me about that is he offers it to Neo. He doesn't force it on him, say, you want to stay asleep in this cute little world or you can see the real world. But that's like, to me, that's kind of religious. Like, do you let this God being into your heart? You've got that option, but it has to be up to you because of free will. See, this movie is dense. It's just too much going on.
It's deep. And if you don't pay attention, it all goes by without you knowing the subtle undertow of the the meaning that's going on.
You could go and watch this movie as a sci-fi movie, a fantasy movie, and go, oh, that's fine. But there's too many things that are in your face in this movie, like the Latin inscription where he goes to see the oracle. Like, oh my gosh, why they call her oracle? There's a whole conversation there. The Latin inscription is know thyself. And this is what Robert kept bringing up is gnosis, knowledge, Gnostic dualism, which is all throughout the Matrix, is he has to believe in himself before he can get these cool moves he does in the Matrix. Mm-hmm. It's like if he doesn't believe in himself and know and is aware, he can't do all these cool things. And that's why Morpheus gets excited. Like, he's beginning to believe, he's beginning to know, he's beginning to become aware. Now he can fight these agents. It's just, it restores the balance allowing authority and a freedom to work in harmony. That's what this website's saying. I mean, and there's everything they did in the movie was deliberate. Naming the ship Nebuchadnezzar, having the place called Zion that the last human outpost is at. You know, all the everything was done. Having that oracle character, having the keymaster, having very, very deliberate stuff. The architect, you know, he was talking about how the agents are archons.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there supposedly a race of aliens who are called archons and he says archons are there to disrupt humanity, to stop us from progressing? And isn't that's what they're all about? That's where they get that from? Am I wrong? I haven't looked this up in a while, so I just think that's interesting how...
I was actually thinking of Star Trek when he mentioned the Archons.
Oh, did it? What was that about?
I think it was the Arconians.
It's a little different. Where do they get that ARCH, from? That's the prefix, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's what I have appreciated about Spaceboy Universe. If this all ends tonight and we never come back, it has helped me get woke, as the children say. I have done research. I have done critical thinking. I have made connections in my mind. Maybe they're not good. Maybe they're not valid. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But as I keep telling you, every other program, I'm like, it's all starting to make sense now. Everything is connected, even though you laugh about me when I say, this is connected to that. It's all part of the tapestry, and I think it's also a conspiracy. I really do. Thank you, Dino. It's good to see you. And again, if I don't learn an opposing opinion, it helps either change mine or validate mine. And that's the whole point of critical thinking is, okay, if you think that way, why do you think that way? I'd like to learn more about why you feel like that. Okay. Then I'll find out that all your sources are invalid. And just, I can deconstruct your philosophy internally. I don't even have to tell you that I don't agree with you, as a matter of fact. So anyway, that's just sort of my take on everything. So.
Well, here's my take on it.
What a cop-out.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lotta.
Get your game on Spaceboy Universe. Level up with Spaceboy Universe. No quarters, no problems. Play it at Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Sir Lana.
Sir Lana cannot catch worth a crap.
Well, we throw a sleeve of town.
Yeah, but you're saying I think we're about to come back from break, and of course I can't run worth a crap so I had to do my best baseball pitch, and you should have seen her. She caught it, but then she spazzed out like she was being electrocuted.
He threw a sleeve of Townhouse crackers at me. Not to be mean, he was trying to pass it to me. I asked him to, just so in case you're wondering. I don't know why that makes me laugh. Sorry. Anyway,
it's to get you to laugh for the last.
It's the last 30 minutes of the show. I've already checked out mentally.
By the way, you did an excellent interview tonight.
Oh, do you think so?
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to interview someone with a book that's been interviewed before many times on the same subject. I tried to pull out things that interested me.
I mean, it was not like I wasn't interested in maybe asking questions, but
you didn't disagree with anything. That's the problem.
I'm over here with the stupid grin on my face.
No, yeah,
shaking.
He was at least happy about it. You're happy about it. I think Robert. I think our guest enjoyed himself too. I think he would come back. I really did appreciate some things like he had in this book that I read. He talks about the origin of tarot cards. That was fascinating as a little aside because it went along with some other subject. He also talks about The Exorcist in that book. He talks about what's the other one? Damien. The Omen 1 and 2. Which I never saw either one of those, and I never will because those kind of freak me. Those two movies freak me out a little bit. He didn't. I mean, I'm really interested to find out what other movies he's going to talk about in his next book because there's just so many of them. But all three Back to the Future, he talked about those. He has a section on the female archetype, which I didn't really get into. It was a lot of the stuff he talked about there I actually kind of didn't understand, and I guess we could have had a conversation about that. We could have him back, and I could get him to illuminate. But he kept bringing up in his book Pythagoras, and I'm like, there must be something to this guy other than a math equation. And turns out there is. So the next time your child is learning Pythagorean theorem, just think there's a lot more surrounding that dude than a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And it also makes me think that, as he said, numbers have meanings. I think maybe even equations have meanings. 666, that's a number everybody's terrified of.
42.
42 is the answer to everything. So now I did not see Eyes Wide Shut. I would like to. I don't know how to get access to it. There's probably a lot to talk about there. It's another Kubrick film that got handed off to Spielberg because Kubrick passed away in the middle of it. But rituals and spooky things in Eyes Wide Shut is a lot there. Just reading more about the Matrix. There's so much there, and it's just the first film. We don't even get into the second and third. I mean, there's things there, but I don't know that they're as dense as the first one. But anyway, I also think that 2001: A Space Odyssey there's a lot more going on there than you can understand, and I saw it as a kid, and it went right over my head, and I thought, well, this is kind of boring, but I like the music. And then I'd come back to it. I'd be a teenager, still didn't quite get it. Saw it as an adult. I appreciate it as a sci-fi powerhouse that it is. Then in the last 5 to 10 years, I was like, oh, now I have the internet, and I can see what other people said, and it's about transcendence and human awakening. It's this gnosis again. It's Gnostic. It's knowing something beyond. It is getting out of this materialistic plane. And it's also about duality, I think, because they tell the computer how, okay, in this circumstance, you should do this. And he did it, and they're like, no, that was wrong, but you told me to do this. You know, and so I think it's also a warning about be careful what you tell your AI because it could interpret it wrong. I guess that leads questions about the follow-up film that Kubrick had nothing to do with, and he dismissed it. But
AI?
No, the 2001 follow-up that is not officially, you know, part of Kubrick's oeuvre. But I appreciate that because it did give some answers to the first one. And it
what, 2010?
2010, yeah. But I like this kind of thing. I like looking at meaning even when it's not hidden. If it's laying out in front of you but nobody talks about it in the movie, or, you know, there's no reference to it. It's just sitting there looking at you, and it makes you think. But like, not everybody is like me that like, well, I'm going to go look that up. So when I was reading Robert's book, and I know in the movie when they show that book simulacra, simulation, like, oh, okay, there's something hugely significant here. He mentions it in his book, and he mentions the author of the book. I'm like, well, I'm going to take a side trip and go see what the significance of that is. And that's the one that led me to some gnosis. I'm like, we're living in a matrix because we're materialistic and we've relied on symbols to give us meaning, and these symbols are meaningless, and it leads to nihilism, and it's going to lead to us being all wrapped up in this thing, and then it leaves us open to tyranny or a robot invasion or Skynet. You see how it's all connected now?
Mm-hmm.
You believe me now? And if I open this packet of crackers, how unprofessional would it be on the air?
Very unprofessional.
Do you want to mute me? Say something.
There you go. You know, I will say this. If you notice that when you get these movies that got the symbolism and using these various ancient storylines like the hero's journey, and you know, you come out with a great movie. Whereas if you have Hollywood trying to take, like, for example, the Beverly Hillbillies and reboot it.
Cash grab.
Yeah, it's a cash grab. But
stupidity.
People, I think, they thirst for something like the hero's journey.
Not everything is meaning, is what you're trying to say.
Right.
And he said that too. Some of it's just pure entertainment. But other stuff is like, what the heck is going on here? And some of it, like Back to the Future, like I said, I don't know if that was done deliberately or if that's just because that's how we tell stories and it's in our unconscious that it happened to be the story of Isis Osiris. On the other hand, you have remakes and adaptations that are on purpose, like Clueless was an adaptation of Jane Austen's why has it left me? Emma. And they did that to update it and bring it to the modern era where people could relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they snuck it in that this was based on a classical piece of literature. They just like, you know, this is this story, but it's actually a story you've heard before. And I'm wondering are we locked in these archetypes in our unconscious mind, and we can't escape it because it's so ingrained, because this is how humans tell a story. You have this, and this, and this, and it's a formula. And this is what we've come to expect. And if it's not in the formula, can we not understand it? Can we not appreciate it? Can we not like it? That's something I want to ask him, but I never want to dominate the conversation. I love it when guests just go, they know their subject matter so well, they just You ask them one thing, and 30 minutes later, they've quit talking. That's perfect. Pardon me. This is a 3-hour show, and it's challenging when you've got, snack
And
monster.
I'm interacting with people in the chat room here. Okay.
Yep.
But it seems to be a good success with the chat room.
Yeah, it's a different one from last time. It's a different application.
Yeah, a different one. This one actually is a paid version that we're using.
The only thing I know to do is, when we're not in use, is to hide the code, upload that to this page, and just say chat is live during this time. And then when we get ready to go live, enable it and put it up. So I don't know how to disable it when we're not there, because, random people can jump in and say bad things, so we have to clear the chat. But yeah, so we were doing Zoom chat tonight with our guests, so we don't have our usual call number up and available, because we couldn't do the two things at the same time. But it was worth it. I'm glad we did that. I thought the audio quality was pretty good. I do believe he might have had a barking dog. So
Tonight's program brought to you by Zoom.
Zoom.us, not paid sponsor, just something we're trying to. In my workplace, they use Zoom, so I was already familiar with it. It's real easy and intuitive. But there's other things out there that would do that, like Discord. It's just anything but Skype at this point. Oh my gosh! I can actually I can make the font larger in that chat that's embedded in our site. We actually can.
I'm shaking my head like, no, I think everything's perfect. What we need to do...
Actually change the font. It's Roboto. Actually change a different font, but they're not good options.
We're going to reach out to the people who purchased this chat program.
Find out why
how we can embed pictures into the chat program.
Because it says you're supposed to, and I cannot figure out why it doesn't work. I can put a link to an image, like from Google or our website, but you can't see
Bob did one earlier to his Instagram.
You can click it, no problem, but it won't show there.
I would, what my wishes are. One, to be able to talk without, like, I'm choking all the time.
Are you having a problem now?
Yeah, I've been...
And I've done all the talking, dude.
Yeah, I know.
What's your deal?
I'm just... it's this medication I'm taking.
Oh, it's drying you out.
It's drying me out.
Oh, so we shouldn't go to Jack in the Box after the show? No, I guess not. Get a milkshake. Anyway, I've liked this topic a lot, if you couldn't tell. I really enjoyed talking to Robert. I'm really looking forward to having him back already. He is going to be on, let me look this up real quick for y'all, Solaris's show. I want to see how I can get that information to you.
Yes.
Freedomslips.com?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah, Freedom
Let's
Slips.
see. Hopefully this won't start playing something. Schedules. I don't know if she's Schedule A or Schedule B. Let's see. What's the name of her show? Maybe she's Schedule A. Such a strange way they have this broken down. Raven Star's Witching Hour, maybe?
Maybe. What day is... if it's Saturday, I think she's on Tina Marie's network, right?
Saturday.
K-Core, is it?
C-Core, you mean?
C-Core, yeah.
She's broadcasting on two different
What day did he say?
I don't know. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully this doesn't start.
Because I think if it's Saturday, it's on C-Core.
K-Core.
K-Core? That's what
KCOR.
Yes, that's what I said earlier. K-Core?
Let's see. I'm looking. I recognize her, her imagery. Okay. Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. Let's see. January 4th, Ray Hernandez. Let's see. They don't have like
schedule.
They
don't have a fancy schedule.
This week's guests there's nothing fancy about our schedule. It's just there. No. That would be Hyperspace on KCOR, or it could be on freedomslips.com. We can actually ask her directly because we have that.
Why don't we do that? We'll just ask her about when Robert's going to be on there so that we can put that word out.
Sorry, I got distracted and like
a lot of dead time here. Sorry.
No, sorry. I just saw something. I'm like, somebody was wrong on the internet and it distracted me. I'm sorry. Yeah. Good stuff. I'm thinking he's going to be amenable to coming back, so that'll be awesome. I think if he's on and it doesn't clash with this show, so we can go listen and get into her chat and ask him questions, and that I think they'd both like that. Did you think?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Even get some of the space cadets to listen.
Yeah, well, we'll put it out there when I get this information. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
No, but I'm preparing to ramp up to reach out for a guest.
I do have some ideas, but I don't know if these ideas will fill all 3 hours.
As I've said before, and if he's listening tonight, we're overdue for a Patrick Sporer interview again.
We need a digital hug from Patrick Sporer. We do, if he doesn't mind.
It's always a pleasure to talk to him. Plus, catch up. A lot has happened in 2018 with Patrick, and we'd like to get him on.
He's been through a hurricane. We went through a hurricane. It's just, we're now hurricane buddies.
Just be prepared. I need to get back on the saddle. I'll have some free time coming up in the week to come, so I can actually put my efforts into the SBU universe. Contacting for possible guests and social media. I'm very far behind on what I used to do for social media, so I need to get back on track for that.
Yeah, we've had some other stuff to distract us. We were talking about before the show aired about Endgame.
Oh, the Avengers?
Yeah. And I glanced at an article saying it's going to be bigger than Star Wars.
Are you excited for it?
Well, I'm really looking forward to finding out stuff.
So, in other words, you're just looking forward to the closure part.
Well, that's a big. How are they going to fix this?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to fix it? Is it going to? Time travel is going to be involved. It's got to be
time travel in the sense of
some people need to come back, and some people are going to not come back.
Paul Rudd's character is definitely coming back from the quantum universe. And
I think it's going to be down to Ant-Man,
mm-hmm.
Captain Marvel, and Ronan. Somehow these marginalized ones will end up helping and saving. And what I read about is because Marvel is good at diversions or, plot twists, what you see in the trailer is not necessarily how it's going to be shown on the screen. It could be shown to you out of order or edited in such a way it makes you think this, but that's not actually what's happening. Things look bleak for Tony Stark, but either something's about to happen right after that scene or the time travel element will fix that. It's possible that he and the guy that plays Captain America are done with this franchise. They're ready to move on or just retire from it. So it could be somebody that comes in that takes their roles over as those characters. Like there could be a different Captain America. It could be Bucky, the Winter Soldier. Somebody else could be Iron Man because, they've already got the Iron Hammer, Warhammer, or whatever. As long as you've got a suit, you can do anything, right?
I think the ultimate thing is that you have this trailer out there and you can't trust it, because if you compare what they did to the last trailer for Avengers, where they had Hulk running, and
that was a lie.
And that was a lie. So there's a lot of speculation to weigh this trailer with a grain of salt. But still, Ant-Man's going to be playing a big part in this. And,
well, because Paul Rudd's cool. He's good as Ant-Man.
Yes. I like Ant-Man. So, yeah, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, there are other movies you're also looking forward to. What was it? The new rebooted version of Hellboy?
Yeah, it looks darker and grittier. Not that the other Hellboys weren't entertaining, but I really think, and maybe this is wrong because, these comic books existed way before the movies, but I really think when Deadpool came out, that changed the game for how certain comic book characters are portrayed on screen now. Now they found out you can be rated R, you can be irreverent, you can break that fourth wall. I don't know that this new Hellboy is doing that, but I just see that influence now. Even I see it with Guardians of the Galaxy, I see it in Avengers, I saw it in Thor. It's okay to be funny and irreverent, even when you're in a serious plot. Mm-hmm. So, I like that. Of course, I'm all into Deadpool and whatnot.
Right.
I'm looking at a suggestion that was posted in the chat, our speaker chat. So that's what I'm looking at.
Oh, a suggestion for
having a guest we've had on previously because they have a new book. But I asked him, what is the new book?
Who's the guest?
Preston Dennett.
Oh,
We've
Preston.
had him twice, haven't we?
Yeah.
So he should be able to come back.
I think the last time we talked to him was about the moon.
The moon.
It's a fake.
It's a fake. I don't know which one of these is the new book. I'm on his website.
Mm-hmm. It's not the one at the very top?
I don't know. I'd have to click on that and see when the published date is. Let's see.
Well, we can definitely look into that. That's not a problem. I'm sure it wouldn't take much to say, hey, Dennis, where am I going with this? My brain just went out to left field. Please forgive me. Say, hey, Preston, why don't you come on out to the universe and chat with us about your book and stuff?
Yeah. As soon as I find out which one it is, maybe I should just pick a random book and go for it. Anyway.
You could always go to, is his books on Amazon?
Oh, yeah, they're on Amazon.
Yeah, that's an easy way to find out what's his latest.
Yeah, try to find the publication date. So, yeah. Thank you for that suggestion, Dino.
Oh, okay. From Dino.
Yeah, Dino's on it. Dino's lit.
Is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what the kids saying these days?
Actually, that might be from 3 or 4 years ago, but I like the phrase.
Okay.
These crackers were a little stale.
They need cream cheese on it.
Mm. I'm so desperate. I'm eating stale crackers at midnight. Sorry. It's not professional, but there's only 5 minutes to go. I know. I shouldn't do this.
What, eat crackers?
No, I shouldn't. But I'm so freaking hungry. We had Chinese for lunch, and it
was good.
It was good, but it did not fulfill all my needs.
We needed a double order.
It was really good. If we ever do that again, get me that exact same thing again, but 2.
I loved it. Mine, I had Kung Pao chicken, and they had put in little pieces of zucchini in it, and it was delicious.
Well, you got me brown rice instead of like steamed or fried, and it was actually really good.
Actually, and I got stir-fried chicken as my rice, and it was delicious.
Sounds good.
It was delicious.
And I thought you'd never eat from there again.
No, you are very particular about your places that you eat.
I was really feeling bad earlier in the day. I'm still not feeling well, but you profited from me. Like, I don't care. Just do it. So.
All right. Well, let's see here.
Would you eat Mardi Gras crawfish cornbread?
Yeah, I would.
I'm not ever making it, but,
Yeah, there's a lot of things you won't make.
Well, oven being broken doesn't help. But anyway, we won't get into that.
But stuff like, I miss stew. And
no one is stopping you from making a stew yourself.
That
is not a difficult thing to make. You're a grown man.
I am not your mama, and
you can read a recipe.
You can read a card, and
you know how the pot is.
You know how to measure from a measuring cup.
You're a grown man, and you can do these things. There's no force on earth that's stopping you.
No, it's a waste of food.
Because only you're going to eat it?
Well, you're not going to eat it.
Yeah, but if you want it, make it. Make portions and put them in Ziplocs and freeze them. And come back to them later. It's just a little extra effort to do because you're whining about it.
Oh,
when you can make things happen.
Grown
man.
I'm not whining here.
Well, you bringing it up 8 million times in our marriage isn't going to make me make it. So I think you would learn how, like, I want stew, therefore make stew, find a way to preserve stew, have stew later in multiple times. So this has been your stew rant for the night. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, we love you guys, and we appreciate you tuning into the universe. See you next week.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Executive producer is Sir Lana. Associate producer is Leanne Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Leanne K, K28, Dino, Solars Blue Raven, Patrick Sporer, Bob and Beverly N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.